Welcome to episode 59 of our board game podcast, A Master's Degree in Rolling Terribly. I'm your host, Teddy, and joining me this week, a man that bribed his way into heaven by giving a tree all his gold, Gaz. Say hi, Gaz.
Hi, guys. Yeah, that's basically it, right? I had to keep throwing money at this tree until they would let me leave.
Yeah, but the heaven, the temple thing. Okay, I get it now.
They wouldn't accept more of the money. I was like, hey, I have more money. Like, no, where there's rules. There's rules when you're trying to bribe your way into heaven. So
yeah, well, the heaven thing threw me a little bit because I'm like, why did you die? Did the Banosphere die? Is that what happened? And then I was like, no, it's because you're donating it at the temple.
Yeah.
See, I get it now.
Valkyrie. Actually, that's really cool. I've got this really cool idea for a class. Let's go down a rabbit hole, right?
Okay.
I'm trying to do this without too many spoilers. So in Gloomhaven, there is a character that when you finish a certain PQ, that character turns into the next character.
I didn't know that. Really?
Yeah. How cool is that? Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I didn't know it because I don't think it's a character you've played.
Yeah,
so
okay.
I like the idea, and it would only work with the Banosphere because it's the only female human. But the Banosphere turning into like a Valkyrie, right?
Okay.
You donated a certain amount of things, and then you kind of turn into the Valkyrie, and then it turns into like this other cool hybrid character.
I like that. Can you still play the old one that retired at the same time, or is it Spider-Man meme?
No, yeah, Spider-Man meme. Yeah, because you just kind of go that guy. I'll make that guy again. He's like, I'm like that guy, but I'm different, right?
Yeah. So they're actually quite similar.
No, they're completely different.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Okay, as in, yes, you can make the character again because the character doesn't get removed from the game, but your individual version of that character turns into that new one. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Which is cool because in the way Gloomhaven works, because you unlock and go into straight away, it kind of works, right? It wouldn't work in Frosthaven because you'd unlock a building and be like, oh, here's
the guy's standing over there, but he's not leaving yet because he's not retiring. He's semi-retired.
Welcome to heaven. You turn into a building. It's like, man, I mean, it's like reincarnation, right? But I came back as a lamp.
Yeah.
So
the G Spotlight was a success, which was really, really cool. People really, really, really enjoyed your chat, okay, and the things you had to say. So it's a segment I think we'll hang on to. We won't do that today. We'll give you a break. But
are you giving me a break or the listeners?
Both. But no, it was really good to see. People obviously like hearing you have a rant. And look, I think that we've known that actually when it comes to just anything that, it's a grind your gears segment, right? And I think that's good. We like those.
But in saying that, like, I don't want it to be a whinge about shit segment. Like, it was a kind of like hey, here's a lot of stuff that I've been hearing and I want to break it down to how I've been thinking about it and share my ideas. So if there are topics like that you think would make an interesting discussion or give me a chance to kind of percolate them in my brain and really think through and explore, I'm more than happy to go on kind of listener suggestions for that stuff. I might not if it's not interesting to think about, but yeah, please throw ideas out there if there's things you'd like to hear, like a good discussion on. Not just tell me the problem with this, all right, or tell me why this is the best. Like it's more,
Would you prefer it if they put it publicly so that you had time to prepare for the topic, or would you rather them DM to me question style and I get to ask you them at random intervals during our future recordings?
No, look, I'm completely fine with random on the spot without notice questions. Not if you want a detailed thought about answer. Like if you want a thought about researched answer, then you need to give me some prep. Look, honestly, if you want to, throw it on the Reddit and have a whole bunch of people discuss it because that gives me heaps more like different angles to look at.
Yeah, that's true.
Because that's kind of what I did with the last one. I was like, I'm not just going to look at this from my view. I wanted to know, well, what are all the people saying it's crap saying? What are the people saying it's good? So yeah, anyway, it's good. I'm glad it was well received in general.
Yeah. No, it really was. And I enjoyed hearing you talk about it as well. So there you go. So uploaded this week, all right? We uploaded a welcome to Frosthaven video. I recorded this on the fly and decided I wanted to put together something just to welcome, and we discussed this last week, just to welcome the influx of people that are coming into the community. It just covers a little bit about our setup. It covers things like Dwarf's FAQ, the puzzle book guide.
I was going to say that, like I watched the video. It turns out there's an FAQ out there that answers heaps of questions. Like,
Yeah,
I learned
yeah.
things from that. It's great.
It will save you a lot of time when it comes to asking me. There you go.
Yeah, can you read the rule book and then do a
No.
video like that that's 10 minutes so that I don't have to do my New Year's resolution of reading the rule book?
The links are in the description, guys. I implore you to click on them. So, yeah, I put this together as a nice little, guide for a smoother entry for people to get into the game, which is fine. Especially if you've come from Gloomhaven, you may be under the impression that, we've done all this already, we've done all this before. What's a couple of extra systems? Outpost phase, that sounds easy. I can just skip that, and all of that. So yeah, it was doing that.
I think the other thing as well is that that's what we kind of did with minimal, and it's not so much that things had changed. It was also the things we were already stuffing up in Gloomhaven that we just kept stuffing up. Like that's part of it. Like read the rules or read that reference sheet and all that, so that you might get a prompt at some things you've been doing wrong for 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. So that you don't keep doing them wrong for another 2 years.
Yeah. No, I agree. And like or start a pod and then explain how you're playing and people will correct you.
It's a really good way of getting feedback on what you're doing wrong. It's just tell them what you did.
It's true.
Implore you. Yeah. Everybody.
Yeah. I recorded that video without Gaz. All right. It was just me. So if you want a Gazless video, watch that. But Gaz, actually, because you weren't part of it, is there any like quick advice that you would give to newer groups that, aren't based around a temple PQ or force links?
No, I'd honestly say take your time reading this stuff to make sure that you get what's going on. If it seems busted, it probably is. And read the FAQ. Right. Like, no, it's seriously, like that's
a boldening blow, right?
Yeah, 100%, right? There's so many abilities out there that if you think that it's absolutely game breaking and well ahead of the curve, you're doing it wrong. Like 100%. So it's just a case of just have some common sense, but also just have a bit of I think the word is humility. I don't know if that's the right word. Like, you can be wrong. It's completely fine. You play this game and you stuff things up. That's just the game, and you make it work, and then you might realize in the next week, I was doing that completely wrong. That's fine. Like, don't pretend that it didn't happen and keep doing it wrong because you don't want to say you're just. That's fine. Fix it up. Like, nobody cares. Isaac's Black Helicopter really doesn't have enough fuel to get everywhere, right? So you're probably not going to get got.
I can hear it now.
Yeah, probably. But like, we did that in the first or second episode, and I talked about leveling up the Geminate or whenever I leveled up, and I was like, it's great. I'm going to drop a melee card, grab a range card, or whatever I said. And people were like, you can't do that. And it was like, before I went into the session, I was reading the carding. I'm like, I can't do that. But I'm like, it was one scenario. Like, I'm going back and go, hang on, guys, we have to restart. Can we order another copy of Frosthaven? Because I have to stuff up. It's like, okay, yeah, I stuffed that up. I forgot to read it properly. Just go. So, yeah, I don't know. People get hung up on that shit. I think it's just, have fun. Go ahead and just...
Have fun, yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
We also uploaded our Prism video that is now up, that is out there. We wanted to get that out before tonight, before we record everything and release it on Monday. Because guess we'll talk about the Prism. So it's a really cool video where, for starters, it was like 6 months, maybe 9 months. I don't know. When did Dwarf message you?
40. It's like 40 years in the making. Like at birth, I feel like there was a star, a prism-shaped star.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe like crab time. Maybe something like that. Yeah, actually, it might have been coming into the crab, and he just sent me a symbol. It's like no spoilers, but like play this character when you unlock it. I was like, okay.
Yeah, okay. In about like 2 minutes, for anyone who hasn't watched that video or anything like that, and they've gone straight to this episode, can you like squeeze in about 2 minutes, maybe just the general shtick about how the Prism kind of works, what its main thing is?
Oh, okay, yeah. In a nutshell, summon class where you have the ability to one of your summons you take kind of control of you kind of becomes a buff, and then you also have the ability to jump and switch between all of your summons.
Yeah, and they're all very, very different. They're very different ones, and they're still doing AI shit on the board. They're following around, but Gaz has the ability to go, you know what, I don't want to be in this one anymore. I'm going to leave this one behind and now take over that one, and he just teleports between them all.
Yeah. So, like, a really good example is and these are level 1 cards. So there's one that gives you jump if you go into it, so that becomes your thing. You take it off the board, right? And then you get that power. There's another one that's the tank one. There's another one that's the damage one. They all give you different buffs, but you can only have one at a time. And when you don't have it, it's running around on the battlefield. So you need to make sure it doesn't die, which I wasn't that great at, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. Would you say this is the most excited you've ever been for a class in the whole Haven thing, just due to
Yeah.
the hype?
Yeah.
It could have been, if no one said anything, just to put something into thought, if no one said anything and me, Mark, or Phil picked this up, how do you think that's going to go down? Who do you think out of us could pull this off?
Well, Mark's played summon characters, so I think he'd figure it out. I think you're due for something like this. So, and you push through, right? Like you figured out the shackles, and you were pumping by the end. And I think for Phil, it might just not fit how he wants to play. That's the problem. He's big brain Phil. Like he'd figured it out super quick, but I think he just wouldn't enjoy it as much because I think he'd be having to do too much shit on the battlefield and worry about all that crap, which he could do, but I don't think he would enjoy that because a lot of it would come out of the AI doing things.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, oh, I did big damage. It's like, well, really, the AI did the big damage.
Yeah.
So, and he'd be like, oh, yeah, that's true.
So thank you, community, for, again, nailing a recommendation. That's been fantastic. And yeah, we're looking forward to seeing how this all turns out.
And also, something I didn't mention in the unboxing, because I didn't read it till afterwards because I didn't want to spend more than an hour talking about it when we spent an hour, is the flavor of it is really cool. I won't say anything because I guess spoilers, but like it's just an awesome concept for a character.
Like, on the character board?
Yeah, on the character board.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool. Like when I read it, I'm like, this is amazing. Like this is such a cool way of bringing the flavor of the character that they've made to life actually on the board. And it works so well. So yeah. Good.
No, it is really well done.
Good fusion there. So yeah.
So on today's episode, we're going to be covering Scenario 17, Haunted Vault. We are going to have a little chat with Gaz about his initial Prism impressions and how he's going after one scenario in, and any surprises there or anything like that. And then we're also going to talk a little bit on the same note, I guess the same path, about summons in Gloomhaven, Frosthaven, etc., and kind of how, they have an impact on the game. But first, we're going to cover our road event. This week's road event is Summer Road Event SR50. Gaz's thought face is on right now. Does he remember?
Nah, I have no idea. We're goods exchange for money for anything, exchange for anything.
Things were exchanged for things. So we came across looked like a wishing well.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So it was a wishing well, and you could decide to, I guess, plop a few coins in there, and or you could choose to unplop a few coins out of there.
Plop is such a great word. Like there's a name for words that sound like this. They sound like
onomatopoeia, right?
Is that what it is?
So yeah.
Oh, nice work. Yeah, plop sounds so good.
Plop. It does. The person who came up with that must have heard that, right? Oh, that's amazing. So yeah, this road event was actually, it was an interesting one. In that, yeah, we had to decide whether or not we wanted to give up money or take the things. And someone mentioned, it's like bless versus curse or something along those lines. And we made the decision to plop a few coins in there. And sure enough, yes, we did get blessed and lost a couple of coins. And
did you read the other side?
I saw the symbol on the other side. I didn't read it.
It was the symbol curse?
It was.
Okay. So we played it. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it was. All right. So how do we get the Scenario 17? So Scenario 17, Mark, in his puzzle book adventures, I think he sorted out the puzzle before the one that we're on now, which advanced forward the puzzle book and also opened up this. And in our amDirt group chat, he posted results in there until he nailed the right one. And then we unlocked this. So we've had this for a while. We just haven't looked at it. And because we just finished the Unfettered and, don't know where to go next, it made the most sense to clear this out, because I think every single other scenario we have right now are random side scenarios or job postings or ones from events and things like that. So we thought we'll nail this one out now, and that's kind of where we started. And it had a lot to do with forever ago, Scenario 9, the oozes and the walls. At the very end of that, you weren't there because you died way back in the hallway, like way back.
Hey, I set it up. Like I
Yeah,
was like the ramp, right? Like
yeah,
you
you
guys
were.
just leveraged off me to victory.
That's true. So the Drifter was the only one alive during that time. So the Drifter solved the puzzle because he's the smartest one, because
Mm.
he cuts his own hair, and he solved the puzzle, and we unlocked a vault, basically, a greeny, oozy kind of vault. So we enter scenario 17. The scenario goal for scenario 17. The scenario is complete when the gold treasure tile is looted. At the end of that round, we read a thing. So very cool, not a kill-all, not loot
So
multiple things.
so flavor wise, is this through the ooze vault?
I think so.
Ah,
It's
I
it's
never
directly it's directly
ooze.
linked to the scenario 9, which was the ooze vault.
Okay.
Yeah. So there were like cogs or something, symbols, and it meant nothing to us. And we had nothing to work on it. And then Mark, funnily enough, Mark was not around when we did scenario 9. My
No.
partner Calvin was. So he got to that part in the puzzle book and he's like, does this mean anything to anyone? And I was just like, I don't know. And he was asking, can you go back to maybe before I came? Was there any Algox ones or anything like that? And I was like, wait a second. And then I went and found, the part from scenario 9, and he was like, yep, that's perfect, thank you. And then he solved the rest, which was really cool. Scenario effect, there is none. Hooray. Scenario special rules. Now I'm going to try and condense some of this because the box is huge. So there are 4 locked doors in this scenario, numbered 1 to 4. There are 4 types of pressure plates. This is our first foray into pressure plating. I think that's a thing. In pressure plates, and they range from A, B, C, D. And the doors unlock when 2 characters or more occupy the same pressure plate. So pressure plates A are linked to unlocking door number 1, pressure plates 2 to door number 2, etc., etc. So whenever this requirement, though, is no longer met, so someone leaves one of the pressure plates and now there's only 1 person or even less, the door immediately closes and locks. And it destroys any overlay tiles that are currently on there, and any figure on it will suffer trap damage and is placed in the closest empty hex. Okay? Now, the first time each of the 4 doors are opened, the first time only, we spawn a monster for each player and place them adjacent to each player so everyone gets 1 spawn next to them. The type of monster depends on which tile they are occupying at the time. And because there are several rooms with pressure plates, it means careful consideration needs to go into this mechanic, and careful planning. There is a mechanic in place to aid lower player counts with unlocking the doors, which is very considerate because then it's impossible. I will say also we did run this scenario twice. So our pets and challenges did change in between, and then we shuffled, we played around with our decks, and tweaked things up for the second run.
Yep.
Challenge card. So the challenge card we had on our first run was called Keep Watch, and it was the only card we had. We decided to only go with 1, and this was a really brutal challenge card, and I'm trying to find a scenario where it's not brutal, I guess. Whenever you perform an attack targeting an enemy that has not yet acted this round, gain disadvantage on the attack. Whenever you perform an attack targeting an enemy that has already acted this round, you gain advantage on that attack. Obviously, that's self-explanatory as to why that's bad, but yeah, things get to, you go with disadvantage, you get it. We had Phalanx as well on the second run. So we keep watch, funnily enough, when we failed the first time and we tried it again and restarted it, I shuffled the challenge deck and pulled Keep Watch again. So we were like, well, I don't think that was the main thing that was causing us major problems. And then we drew a second one, which is Phalanx. Each enemy gains 1 shield while it's adjacent to 1 or more of its allies, which we also kept. Because we figured after the first run, if we're not adjacent to each other, the monsters aren't going to be adjacent next to each other as well. That was wrong. Our pets were Stu the Forest Imp and Lunacy the Hound. That was the second run. I don't know who came on long on the first one. I'm sure it was Ward, because Mark got real sad when Ward didn't come back.
Yeah.
Our monster combinations are Living Doom, Living Spirits, and Ice Wraiths. The first room setup is a T-shaped room with 3 doors and 3 of the pressure plates. Initial thoughts, Gaz?
In the initial run, it seemed, this seems fine. There was no monsters on the table. We were going to get some soon. We were going to open doors.
That threw me off a lot.
I think I wasn't thinking a lot about this scenario at the start because I was trying to work out how to make my character do things. So, like, it was like, oh yeah, okay. I feel like you guys can handle that stuff. Although, what's funny is at the start, we're like, okay, cool, we all spawn here. That we need 2 people to move forward and stand on a pressure plate each. And everyone's just like, oh, I'm not going, I'm not going, I'm not going. And I'm like, oh, guys, like, come on. Like, it's a really simple part of the objective. The first step is stand on AA, right? That's
Hmm.
it. So, yeah, but no, I don't know. It seemed interesting.
Yeah, I think the
Like,
hardest thing for you would you get to choose a pet to start off as, right? And just
yeah, well,
kind of
that's
work
it.
that out.
So trying to figure out which pet I was starting at and how that flows into things and all that. So yeah, like it seemed pretty cool. Messing around with the pressure plates and going
That
from
that
there.
that whole concept reminds me of those old 2D puzzle games where you can, um, yeah, one player goes to stand on something and opens it up for player number two, and these two are both split up. There are
Mm.
games that do that, and yeah, it just reminded me of that, and it's baked into the scenario. I went into this scenario going, this scenario is a puzzle.
Yeah.
I'm going to hate this scenario with a passion. That's literally what I thought.
I feel like, and spoilers for how we go through the scenario. You're constantly saying that you're like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know about what the plan is. Just tell me where I go.
Yeah.
Tell me where to be. And I was like, okay, all right. Let's do that. So yeah, and I think that was it. Like, it was mostly us just all trying to figure it out without knowing the other pieces, though. That's the tricky part. And I mean, this is probably going into a little bit of what happened. But once you start opening the rooms, like for example, in the first room you start, there's like an A, and a B. I'm pretty sure, right?
I can't remember, but yeah.
4 maybe. But either way, they weren't all there. So as you opened rooms, you unlocked different combinations of pressure plates, which meant you needed to figure out which ones you were going to stand on to get people to go places. So I think that was hard because we were theory crafting or theorizing about what to do when we didn't know what was in the other like 2 rooms or 3
No.
rooms or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So that was probably what slowed us down a bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of exploration at the start, and there's also Mark right now is on our fist. I think he's level 7, so he's officially the highest level. So he wants to go into a room because he believes he can maintain and tank it better than maybe you could do, especially on your first, go, etc. So a lot of it came down to planning that. It was literally, we're going to open the door for Mark, get him in there, and then we're going to open the following door for Phil, get him in there, and you and I are going to sit in the tea room and just press buttons when the boys need them, right?
Oh, and also Phil's trying to figure out if he's hard or flaccid, right? Like,
That's, yeah.
yeah. It's like, can you move over there? No, I can't because I'm way too hard.
There
Like,
was a scene where the door opened, was like, we're going to get Phil out. Okay, we're going to press these buttons. And Phil came charging out of the room with a massive volley. He was like running down real far because it was hard. And then the living dude was just chasing him. It was just so funny. So yeah, we open the door for Mark and we get our first lot of spawns. Now, I want to have a little chat about a friend. It's a very, very old friend, guys. It's the Living Spirits. These guys have been around forever, right? They're one of the first major things I guess you'll run into in Gloomhaven. And we've kind of not thought much of them because of their low health. We've always kind of got ways to deal with them. They never really cause much problems. These ones have 3 shield, right? That's standard. Actually, when they're next to each other, they have 4 shield because of phalanx, right? They're ranged, which I didn't really care about until this scenario. And the challenge card also means that we need to go after them to get advantage. Otherwise, if we go before them, we have disadvantage against their fat shield, which is kind of broken. They actually like completely screwed us over, and they were really difficult to kind of maintain.
Yeah.
The thing that upset me the most was that you and I had a job where we had to stay on buttons, on pressure plates. And then because I had to go after them, they would spawn next to us. They would then move away from me, and then they would hit me. And I'm playing the media right now that really wants things in melee range. And I can't begin to say how frustrating this experience was because I only have 1 Pierce card. I have pure damage with hazardous terrain, which they don't care about, and a couple of things that involve creating obstacles and blowing them up for like 2 damage and things like that. I found this very, very frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. if you haven't seen our tier list, monster tier list version 2 video, where we go through all the monsters, kind of 2 years into Frosthaven, we kind of put living spirits in the bin. Not quite in the bin, but they definitely weren't high up. And I think the reason for that was we talked about we always seem to have some form of pure damage
Yeah.
or pierce or, just big hits or whatever it is to take care of them. It's like, yeah, that's it. Don't worry about them. I don't know what happened to that, but somehow just the Banner Spear retiring meant that we now could not kill them. And
Mm.
look, maybe it's a little bit to do with Phil also retiring on the Blink Blade, so maybe we hadn't seen them since we. Oh, I don't know, but he was on the drill in the last one. But again, I think the Banner Spear just went really large. So I don't know. Anyway, all of the things that I said were the reason they weren't a problem suddenly disappeared and became a problem, and we didn't have those tools anymore.
Yeah.
So it was a pain, and they suck, and I hate them.
It was really bizarre to see how much trouble we were struggling with these 4 health, elite
And
things.
I'll talk about this a bit later when we go through the Prism and kind of what I learned. But the one of the things that I undervalued in the unboxing was a card called Shocking Pulse, which is like it's the summon that is like the Pierce summon, right? But when you are in that mode, you gain Pierce. And I was like, yeah, whatever. That's. I didn't take that on the first run because again, I'm trying to figure out like what my cards do and which way's up. On the second one, I'm like, oh wait, this seems really good. So again, it was teching for that stuff, but I'm thinking on my feet now, and I go, okay, when I was the Geminate, I had Pierce and pure damage. When I was my Crab, I did not have any issue with Pierce at all because I had a card that basically gave me permanent Pierce. The Banner Spear also had a couple of cards with Pierce. And so I kind of go through these things. I'm like, I've never had a problem with shields. So I didn't think it's like, and then suddenly I did. Because in the first run, when I didn't have that thing, I was drawing heaps. And because I was mostly attacking with disadvantage, I was drawing so many cards and hitting for 2, 3. Like attacking for 2, getting a +1 and going like, oh, no damage again, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
if we'd been recording it on the DPS meter, the amount of attacks that I was doing for nothing was ridiculous. So it was, the
amount of times that I was trying to, without Pierce, hit them with Quench Rage and all sorts of stuff, and hitting them for 3 when they have 4 health. Like hitting them for 3 actual damage on top of getting through their shields. I was hitting hard, and I couldn't kill them. And that was
you had like multiple that you left on 1 HP, and normally you'd be like, that's fine, but it's like we don't have follow-up. Like we have nothing to just go deal 1 damage. So they became a pain in the ass.
They also make ice, which is really exciting for Mark. But if it remains up, they can stun you, which I don't think we've seen that until now.
No.
And that was super dangerous because especially later on when we were having to move from room to room, and these guys are still alive, obviously, because we can't seem to kill them. It became like these guys just suddenly became, I don't know, like oof. They became oof.
Yeah. The monster choice in this scenario is actually really interesting, and the mechanic and the idea to make them spawn on you the turn after you've opened a room, rather than just have monsters in the room, right? Because that's the other way you could have done it. Open a room, there's 2 or 3 monsters in there, you got to kill them, then you got to move on. But having them spawn was good because it meant that you didn't have to all run over and then run back, so you kind of save a bit of stamina there. But it also meant that you got this variety, and there was choices about, well, where do you want to be?
Yeah.
Right? Because, I mean, there were living spirits, which we've talked about. The other one were normal and elite, what are they, frozen ice wraiths?
Ice Wraiths, yeah.
Ice Wraiths, which are the same because they have the same HP. They just have different abilities depending if they're. So they also suck, right? Yep. And then the other one had living dooms in it. So there's like none of those rooms. Like the living spirits is the easy one.
It felt like the easy one.
We're not. That's the thing. It's like, oh, let's just stay in here and get the easy mode monsters. Oh, I'd rather a thing with 2 retaliate, or the other one that's like, gonna bane me and summon a million living spirits. Like, it became very interesting, and I wonder if you had a different party makeup that did not care about living spirits at all.
Shackles would not have cared at all.
Yeah, 100%. If we had the Shackles, I feel like we would have probably done 2 scenarios in that night rather than
Probably.
one twice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting. It's very interesting that character makeup can have that much difference. So
No, but I loved it. So inside each room, we open the doors. There's good door opening people. Mark went in one side, Phil went in the other. We saw more pressure plates. So these are the ones that are tied to both each other and also the room that we can't access yet, which is kind of cool. There's kind of like what do you call it? Like a submarine situation where you're both turning your keys, but you're too far away that you can't both turn them at the same time with one person. So yeah, I think I don't know what I'm trying to say.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, unless you're like that stretchy dude.
Yeah. So yeah, Phil stayed in one room. We had Mark in the other, and then later on, I think we traded with you because Phil having you. There's a really cool way that the Prism can play. I mean, it's just built into the character in that you can change which summon you're going to be by moving your token from one to another whenever you play a card with that symbol on it, which effectively allows you to teleport.
Yeah, correct. Well, it's a teleport. So if mechanically, if I'm on the map and I use the transfer symbol, which is on a bunch of the cards, I can switch places with one of my other summons. The one that was on the board goes off the board, and I get its powers. And the one that I had goes onto the board. So we kind of saw that in the first run and didn't need to use it. But then when we came back through, we went like, maybe that's a better idea if I run in that room and I just teleport back out.
Made a big difference. Can you de-summon that pet as well with a card, the one that you left in there? Or
I don't.
You need,
well, I do have a card that normally no, I don't think so. I think you could, but then they go into your lost pile like everything else. So it's a specific card that says when you swap with a summon and use that ability, it goes into your discard pile rather than like.
Is that what you did?
Yeah, that's what I did. So I didn't have to sacrifice something in that room. But I was willing to, but then I saw that card. I'm like, oh, actually, this is better.
Yeah. So, and something else to observe from the first and second run was that you actually lost quite a few of your bots in the first run. It was kind of sad to watch them drop one by one.
Yeah.
Not something you really had an issue with. I think you did a much better job of managing them and being a bit more selective over which ones came along.
Yeah, because I just didn't summon any of them. Like, that's what, I mean, overall, we'll talk about how I played. I think that this was an interesting one for playing this character on the first run.
Yes. So we also use the doors to do damage by jumping off the pressure plates, which is pretty cool.
We should have recorded DPS meters for the doors because I reckon that they probably would have done more than I did.
Yeah, the door damage was amazing. It was very cool that gave no crap about it was trap damage, so it gave no crap about the shields or anything like that. Can you imagine if we did this? Because we had to state this was part of the problem with this challenge is that this scenario is that you and I kind of and then later on Phil, we had to stay on the pressure plates, which meant we can't chase things around. We didn't have that kind of luxury. We also couldn't run around and pick up all the loot that was everywhere because every turn was really tight with staying where we were. And then you throw in the challenge card that we didn't have, but the one that if you don't have shield, you get pushed back one for the attacks. Would have been a nightmare.
That would have been gross. Well, I mean, because the living spirits are all ranged and we're going later, they weren't even dying next to the pressure plates. They were dying once, like, the hex away from the pressure plates, which is so annoying because we couldn't even stand on the pressure plate and loot one. We were like, oh, I want to grab over there. Grab.
It was horrible. So we also had a lack of healing, actually. Now that Banisphere's gone, we literally had a lack of healing. That was really felt. Not that it was, impossible or anything like that, but everyone definitely has to look after themselves a little bit in that regard.
I tried to wean you off it. Like the last 2 or 3 scenarios, I didn't take the healing banner because I was like, oh, I've got to get the withdrawals out and the reliance on this healing character. And
it is tough. So eventually we get access to the room above. It's got 3 more pressure plates and another door. This room will then spawn the normal ice rates, so we've got a nice variety of where we want to go. And we also managed to open that door, which then led to another corridor with an absolute fuckload of pressure plates. And I thought this was the last room. So when I'm setting this up, all I could see was just pressure plates everywhere. And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. Because it was such a slog to just even get to this room. And then in that same room, there were more pressure plates in front of another door that required all 4 of us to be. And I think that the moment was like that was the moment where we called it on the first run, and we were like, we probably need to restart this. And we started going through, like, I think, were very low on cards. We had to somehow reposition ourselves to get Mark out of the original room he was in, because we were under the impression it doesn't say anywhere if a character dies, the scenario is lost or any of those kind of lost conditions. But this last bit at the end, you just need 4 people to stand on it to open that door.
Yeah, that it was kind of a bit of a gotcha, like
A little bit,
and not in a negative, like this sucks sense, but it definitely did get us. Because we were kind of like, well, Mark can stay there. He's fine with that. He'll just kind of punch on with his ice wraiths while, we go finish the scenario. But then we opened that and was like, no, you have to be here. I'm like, oh. To let him out wasn't as simple as just standing on 2 pressure plates. We needed to let him through basically 2 doors, which means
we had to
lot
backtrack.
of messing around. Yeah. So it was a bit shit, and I don't know. Like a little bit of a lead in would have been good for that, like some kind of mention in the flavor that we probably would have ignored about like, hey, you seemed this feeling like all 4 of you should make your way towards the end. I don't know, but look, either way, it was fine. I think that with a different party makeup, we wouldn't have had as much issues. But yeah, it definitely was okay. Do we restart? It's like 8:30, which I know this doesn't sound late, but by the time we get through a whole nother scenario, it gets close to midnight. And we try to avoid that because we get real sloppy in our play by the end because it's a weeknight. So we were kind of like umming and ahhing. It's like, all right, it's already set up. Let's just do it, right? Let's just go.
100%. Yeah, and we don't want to relive 45 again when we go 2 weeks with the same scenario. There's just a lot riding on this. Everyone game face on, wake up, we got this.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly it, because it's more about that as well. If we just said, let's just push on and try and do it, there was a good chance we weren't going to finish it, which means we were playing this one again next week, which is fine, but also not fine at all. So it was like, I'll be tired tomorrow so that I don't have to play this one again next week.
Everyone appreciates your sacrifice, Gaz.
Well, everybody sacrificed. We all sacrificed.
We did. So Mark and Gaz directed traffic in this because Phil really wasn't doing much of that. I wasn't doing much of that. We were happy to just be told where we needed to go, which is really cool. I enjoyed the conversations between you and Mark. It really felt puzzly when it came to sorting out. Now that we've seen that last room, we assume the last room, the most recent room we have opened, because there's still a door that we don't know what's behind.
Yeah.
We get to play more efficiently. I think people all traded new cards in. You definitely changed a few things around, especially the starting pet. We didn't bring legs, I don't think, as much as we love legs. And yeah, we basically also changed the pets around, which gave us Stoostu, which was really good to actually get a nice early heal on everyone when we all started to feel that pressure. Lunacy, I can't remember your moment. It must have been average at best.
I think we did use it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, see?
Like, I feel like, did we have Lunacy in the first run? I feel like there was a turn we used Lunacy and we got a lot out of it, but I don't think it was the second run. So we might have had Lunacy on both runs.
Oh, yeah, it's a good point. We might have actually. That makes sense.
So
we had the extra puzzle of trying to get Mark out. That was really fun. Yeah.
Just actually, we probably should call this, if you haven't been listening from the start and you're wondering what the hell we're talking about when we say Stoostu, Lunacy.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Okay. We have named all of our pets based on people in the community. So we have like a little randomly generated thing. We haven't found it.
Not in ages.
Right. But that's what we're talking about. So we probably should start saying that. So
yeah, Stoostu the forest imp who has a healing ability.
Yeah.
And Lunacy the hound who gives everyone a +1 attack provided their target is adjacent to one of your allies.
So it's funny because we've been using this terminology about using these people for weeks, and there's potentially someone who jumped on a couple of months ago. It's like, what are these characters people are talking about? Like, what's a Stoostu? Like, it sounds. How do you use it, and where do you get it from?
It's hard because as we're playing, it's like, do you guys want a Stoostu? And everyone's like, yeah, I think we should Stoostu. So we Stoostu. That's literally how we communicate.
Yeah,
what's happening.
It's like, do you want to use the forest imp pet that we've captured? No. Like, I mean, that's so. Imagine like being a Pokemon master and it's like, forest imp, I choose you. Nah, it's boring. It's like, Stoostu, I choose you. Right? Like, yeah. So anyway, just wanted to clarify that in case there's anybody.
That's a fair point. That's a fair
and
point.
is like, I don't know what you guys are smoking, but that's not a thing.
No. So Gaz uses teleportability to make things faster. I think we rushed Phil to the end and he was chilling in the last room on pressure plate duty, looking incredibly bored
Yeah, he was
for a
kind of
fair
playing
bit.
DDR there, right? Like he was just jumping backwards
Yeah,
between pads.
yeah. And then, I went back to try and see if we could get help Mark it out. But the rest came down to card economy ultimately and trying to get everyone over to the forge pressure plates at the end. This opened a final door, a final room, nice and small. It had 2 living spirits in there and a living doom, and then the gold treasure tile, which then Phil was like, fuck this, I'm out. And when he went and looted the treasure tile, booked both of the spirits at the same time, I think, in the same turn, which was like, well, hang on. Like,
Where's this been?
yes. And then, we
Literally just
finalized
spent
our
like
last turns.
4 hours getting like wrecked by these guys. You're like, is killing them both in one turn good?
He had more time on his own to prep his overcharge thing.
That's it. It needs a little time.
He needed to release the valve. And then we won. We looted the thing and we won. And it was a nice relief because by that stage, I think it was 11 or 11:30 or something stupid like that. So our rewards for this was 2 ticks each, which was really cool. Really nice to see a juicy reward like that.
Especially
And
on a character. Oh, I would have hated this if this was about 3 weeks ago, but like Phil was still on his blink blade and I was on the banner spear on the way out. Gross.
Yep, 100%. And we unlock a new scenario 27. Gaz, what were your thoughts on scenario 17?
Yeah, it was great. It was really cool. I think it did what it wanted to do well. I don't think it overcomplicated anything. I think the pressure plate stuff was a little bit fiddly, but that's just more with the actual pieces on the map. So having the letters there, we didn't have enough letters for all the
No,
pressure
there was
plates as well.
definitely not enough letters for the pressure
That's
plates, which
so
is
that
a
gets
little bit
weird because
annoying.
we had to use other tokens, and it's like, oh, what's that? What's that? So I mean, that's not design of it, right? That's just components and stuff like that. So, but no, I thought it was great. I thought it was really, really cool, and it definitely threw up different challenges that I would be interested to know how other groups and makeups do,
Mm,
because we talked a little bit about this. As like, whenever you have a retired character, you're always like, oh, I wonder how this character would have gone, because it always seems to be really good for them. Right? You're like,
yeah.
oh wow, the thing that this character excels at, we're now, doing underwater. I wish I had a crab. But thinking about the banner spear, I'm like, it would have been terrible because I wouldn't have been able to do
Yeah,
anything. I would have
we
had
were
to, if
we were quite split up.
and if I'd played the same way that I played the Prism in this one, which was like, the role was to stand on pressure plates and kind of keep doors open and then slightly move and stuff. I wouldn't have been able to move. I would have had to stay on the pressure plate and going, can everyone else just move around me?
Mm,
So again, I wonder about different characters and how they would fare in different situations. I mean, again, you have Blink Blade and you just be like, oh, we just win, right?
yeah, I have a feeling we had a pretty undercooked lineup going into this one. It kind of felt like that, just a little bit, at least compared to our previous lineups that we've had.
Mm.
Which was cool because it added to the challenge of this particular scenario. And we were talking about difficulty, right? We were talking about increasing it. I don't think the difficulty of this scenario was in the creatures. I think you could level it up a little bit and they hit slightly harder and take an extra hit to that. It wasn't to kill them all. That helps obviously, but the difficulty of the economy of stand on this thing until such and such is clear from that room. Initiative was probably more important than it's ever been, trying to make sure that you're going in the right order with your teammates, because yes, that could really set you back or at least cost you a round before you have to go again. I found this to be a very puzzly scenario, and I really enjoyed this scenario, as weird as that is.
Wow.
I know Mark did as well. I asked him at the end. I says, "What did you enjoy that?" He goes, "I love that," and I was like, "I thought so." I don't know about Phil because I have a feeling Phil was going with it definitely, but there was a period of time because he was the one right at the end in that last room sitting on the pressure plates, and no creatures came to him because we were dealing with them. He literally wasn't doing much. Not from a standard Phil way, but from there's nothing to hit kind of way. But he needs to stay there
Yeah.
kind of way.
Yeah, it's I think he's also figuring out the drill. So I
Yes.
think that's a little bit of that. Like yeah. I think it's just an interesting one. There wasn't a lot of stuff to hit, and the stuff to hit was annoying to hit, and then sometimes you weren't allowed to hit things. You had to go somewhere, right?
Yes.
So yeah, it is an interesting one, and I think certain players, but also certain characters probably don't gel well with that. So
Yeah, I can see why this scenario is probably hated by a lot of people, especially
oh,
the people that. Pardon?
do people hate this one?
No, I'm assuming. I haven't checked. But it's because the people who have come from Gloomhaven to Frosthaven and they don't like how big some of the rules, special rules are for some of the scenarios where it just becomes very, I don't know, they feel it's maybe convoluted or a little bit too much. I think this epitomizes that because between the pressure plates and the door mechanics and the way the monsters spawn, you have a lot of control over things that happen. But for the people that want to just run in and kill everything,
Yeah,
it's not going to give you that, right? Especially when you have to sit on these plates. And there are moments, when players aren't doing anything.
yeah, it's an interesting thing to explore, and probably it's not probably worth going into. But that complexity and the amount of special rules comes up a lot in regards to why some of the scenarios
Enjoyment.
aren't enjoyed. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
purely from enjoyment, and why it kind of tends to be on the lower side of that, I guess. But I think ones like this are the type of scenarios that get lumped in and used as an example, but I don't think should be. Like,
No.
yes, there's a lot of text in the purple boxes, right? Because it has to explain how pressure plates, summoning, doors, all that kind of crap out. But it's not complexity as in like we had to keep checking the rules. It was like you stand on a pressure plate, you open a door.
Mm.
Right, monster spawns, right? Like there was a small checking of like which monster spawns here, but that's just a reference. So I feel like it wasn't one where it was complex and overbearing with rules. It was more just like there's a lot of description about how these pretty basic systems work, and that's what I like. I think it's fine to take 5 minutes at the start, even 10 minutes at the start of the scenario, getting your head around how it all works, and then going, "We've got it now." Like I don't mind front loading that. I think it's
Interesting.
fatiguing when it's constant through the whole scenario, where you're constantly going back to the section to be like, oh wait, how does this work? What's that do? What's the ruling on this? And that's I think when it slows down the gameplay,
Mm.
that's where I feel like it starts to get a bit fatiguing. I think that's when the enjoyment gets sapped out. But I don't think this one did that. I think this one was pretty kind of clear, clear enough that you were able to go like, yeah, okay, cool. Now it's up to us. Let's figure it out. It's a puzzle. Let's go.
Do you think party makeup, not from a character point of view, but from players themselves? Like we were very fortunate. We're fortunate that our group is mixed up of a variety of different personalities and different thought processes when it comes to solving a lot of these things. If we had like four daddies, or rip, but if we had like, I don't know, Phil and I and another Phil and I, right? Would that change the way the scenario played out, or would we be a bit more? I reckon we would have tried to solve it, but it wouldn't have felt maybe as enjoyable because we don't like that kind of thing. I don't know. I can't answer that.
Yeah.
But there will be groups out there that will be in that situation where they've got four people who just want to go and bash stuff, that are going to hate this, and then you got the mixes between people who want to min max and puzzle everything out and they love it, right? And having a group
Yeah.
that can fit all those kind of things maybe can change a group's campaign experience.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think, yeah, you can have a group that likes this, but then, like last week, we did the Spire Basement, which is basically just an attack move the whole map, right? There was no strategy to it at all. That I can see a player group not enjoying that. Like, we didn't really enjoy that. We didn't come away from that going, like, that was fun. It wasn't bad. It was just super meh, right?
Yeah.
The only reason I enjoyed it was because I got to do, like, heaps of really cool shit on my character. But that's, like,
But that's why people like those, right? Because they get to do cool shit on their character.
it is, but then three other people didn't really have a good time. Like, you know why? Because there wasn't enough monsters or whatever. I'm not going to go and do a review of the last scenario. But yeah, 100%. I think player makeup makes a big difference when you're talking about how these work, which again is very different from Gloomhaven. And I don't want to go back into that conversation about them up against each other. But you can play through the entire. I think Gloomhaven's very predictable, right? Like all of the scenarios you go through are very predictable in the sense that they're mostly going to be appealing to the same type of people. You know, if you don't like the first 10 scenarios in Gloomhaven, don't play Gloomhaven, right? That's not going to get any different. Whereas that I feel like Frosthaven, you could play the first 5, 10 and be like, yeah, I like this is my jam. And then you can get to a bunch of like, this is not my jam at all.
That's
Right?
yeah. I was gonna say that was literally us, where it was like, oh my god, they had to kill the orb, and the Yetis were immune. They keep coming up with this amazing stuff, and people were like, just wait a second. And then we hit scenario 14, and then we hit 22, which I know we're in the minority of having problems with that, but it was kind of like, this is shit. Like, what's going on? So yeah.
So
right.
yeah, so I think to bring it all back, 100%. I think the actual players you pick are going to make it up. Their characters are going to influence that because how you interact with it is going to change as well, right?
Yeah.
Like if you have got a character that's really only good at moving around and hitting shit, and that's what you want to play because you enjoy doing that, and you've kind of gone into that persona, you're also not going to enjoy a scenario where you don't get to move around and hit shit. So yeah, I can see how people would miss this, but I think it's a really well designed scenario. Kudos to the designers, whoever that was, because I think you nailed exactly what this scenario was trying to do.
Yeah. No, I surprised myself with how much I enjoyed it. And no, I don't want it to be filled with this. And I can see a world where people with their ordering of their scenarios may end up doing a run of 3 or 4 similar to this, only to finish on this one in their chain and just go, what the actual F? You know what? Fuck this game. Right? We had literally the opposite last week where it was a mindless run to the end and just kill everything. And into this, maybe that enhanced why I enjoyed this so much, because it actually was a struggle, right? It was a struggle. It was difficult. We didn't have a Blinkblade running around solving all our problems. We had to really work at it felt cooperative. We had to really work towards solving this and trying to get everyone into the last room, right? I love that. Yeah. No, I had something else I wanted to say. I forgot.
But look, kind of not related to that, but you did mention this just then with the teamwork and the talking together. Is I want to mention something that came a bit of a theme throughout the entire scenario or entire play session, both scenarios, right? So we were about to start, and then the conversation. I think it was turn 1 maybe or turn 2. So we now have 3 characters that all are like meshed together in regards to like the elements that they want.
Oh god.
Okay, so we have Deddy wants fire and grass, Mark wants grass and ice, and Phil wants fire and ice, right? So this is all kind of, I'm just like, I'm out of this, guys. Like, I don't want any part of it. Now, we kind of have established, or at least I felt we'd established pretty good communication through the Banisphere being in the game. And maybe this is where the problem was, is that maybe communication with me had become really good, but not with the whole group. Like, everyone was really open and happy to talk about what they were doing so that it kind of enabled me and then I could enable people. But maybe there wasn't much going around with everyone else, because we got to several situations where they're in like a Mexican standoff of who's making what and who's eating it, right? Like, and then if you slightly change, you're like, wait, you said you weren't eating grass. Yeah. I didn't mean to. I didn't know it was the. You said you didn't want the grass. It's like I wanted the grass. So why I made the grass? Why would I make the grass if I didn't want the grass? Did you eat the grass? It's like whoa, okay. Like maybe we just need to chill out here. It's like just that kind of stuff happens.
We were also heavily involved in what was happening on the board. So what would happen is I plan everything. Daddy, it's your turn. I'm like, oh yep, cool. I look at the actual computer screen. There are mine. Okay, cool. So I play this. I eat the. Hang on a second. That was up a second ago. Okay, and yeah, you're right. That's when it starts. Who ate that? Mark's like, I did. And I'm like, you said you weren't going to. You're 100% right. That's, yeah, that definitely happened. I don't know how.
And I think the language that we use, it just makes it even funnier. And I love that I'm able to sit here and not get involved in anything. But the like element being up and eating, right? Like just again, it just makes it funny. It's like, wait, that what happened to the last piece of pizza? I specifically put it in the fridge and put my name on it. That's my piece of pizza. Yeah, you're just like, oh, I don't know. I needed to eat it. But then this is where the communication breakdown was. It's like, yeah, but I'm making it again. Like, we get stopped as like Mark would have his turn. He's like, okay, cool, and I eat the grass, and you'd be like, whoa,
I lose my shit. I lose my shit immediately.
You didn't tell me. You said you were making it. You didn't, and it's like, whoa, just chill. The rest of my card says that I also make it. It's just like, so everyone.
It's like, okay.
Yeah, I think the communication needs to maybe just improve a bit in regards to saying more and making sure that people don't freak the fuck out when their elements get eaten. They go to the fridge and they're like, what happened? I put it in here, and now it's gone.
No, I like it.
And then
Yes,
and when
something
you
to work on.
and when you throw in the living spirits that are like, "Ooh, delicious ice! I'm going to stun everyone now." And it's like the person who's just kind of rocked into the household, into a share house, and just started going through the fridge and eating everything. We're like, "Whoa, who invited this guy? He's really messing up the Zen." So
We also have a bantery kind of playstyle as well. So if I look up and we see that the ice rates or the whatever, the like you said, the living spirits, if they're eating the ice, my immediate thing is, haha, Mark, they're eating the ice. And then they're like, oh, well, really? What are they doing with it? And I'm like, well, hang on, they're stunning me. Can you fix that for a second? It's just like, how
yeah,
much do I want to do that? I was like, no, please, please. I
yeah,
really need you
yeah,
to do something about that.
yeah. So I don't retract my banter and giving you shit, but I'd also like you to do something about it as well.
Yes.
So
Does Ormi survive in scenario 17?
I don't know. Nah, I don't. Maybe who? I don't know. He's just hanging around, right?
I
Like,
think once we get through, I think at the beginning it's okay, but he's always going to be going towards creatures. And I think that eventually, unless we can clear it super fast, he will get absolutely smashed.
yeah. I don't think it's the worst scenario, but it's probably not great for him.
No.
Especially considering at the end, I think we ended up just legging it. Like once we got everyone to the point where like, oh, we got everyone through, let's go. At that point, he's just like, well, hey, where did everyone go, guys? Like, what are all these ice rates doing? I'm not ready to be a hero. So,
community-wise, there was a lot of people talking about unlocking it because it's on the flowchart. So you do scenario 9 relatively early, and then there's 17 linked to it, and there's a symbol there that says, I don't know, it's got a puzzle piece or something like that. So there's a lot of people going, how do I get this scenario? How do I unlock this scenario? There's a lot of that happening. And there's also a radar on one of the sections, which I knew about from the FAQ. So it actually says on the pressure plates, when you press them both, it says to open the wrong door. And if we did it that way, we would never get out. So,
okay. In good errata, what Underwolf could pick up on that one.
So
read the errata, guys. If you didn't watch the Welcome to Frosthaven video, and the one thing you didn't take out of that.
Yeah, it's a very small thing, but it's definitely in there. Battle goals. Conservator. Yeah, Conservator. Never perform an action with a lost icon. That was me. Media that has lost cards I don't really rely on them. There's only one on there that I think I brought, which was the Fury one, my level 2 one, which doubles my attack, my double, which I didn't end up using at all. So yeah, no, nice, easy.
Don't you have like some kind of eruption? I remember Phil always.
I didn't bring it.
Oh, you've got it though. You just didn't bring it.
Yeah. Yeah,
okay.
It's a level 1 card, but I didn't bring.
Oh, is it? Is it a level 1 card?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Actually, would have been kind of handy, but I needed to make an obstacle, and it was just faster to punch things and be disappointed.
Yeah.
We had an assassin kill an enemy before it takes its first turn. I'm pretty sure Phil did this right at the end. He did it on the spirits when he booked the spirits at the end.
Yeah,
he completely gave up on his battle goal until the very last room.
We were all there, and he went super early, and he punched those spirits out.
Because he was hard, right?
Oh,
he would have been
raging.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Peacemonger, never kill an enemy.
Yeah, it was me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, from our first run, I was like, that'll be really easy because I can't kill anything. But then on the second run, when I took the pierce stuff, I had to start pulling my punches a little bit and just not doing certain things. Like I was like, this is where the disadvantage actually came into my favor, because if I was hitting something like a living spirit with 3 health and I'm hitting it with pierce 5, I'm like, I could kill this, right? But there's probably a pretty good chance that I don't kill it because I'm gonna draw some kind of negative. So
you got that?
Yeah, got
Good
it.
start.
Yep.
Good start.
Yeah, well, especially with the extra 2 we got from the reward. Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
Insomniac, suffer damage from an attack in the same round you long rest, and that was with Mark.
I think Mark
while he was literally spent the whole scenario basically fighting ice wraiths, and then coming barreling down the corridor for the final stretch. So that was that was nice. DPS. So I've got 2 charts here. I'll put them both in the video, but I'll only talk about the winning one.
Mm-hmm.
So Gaz was 6 damage. Do you remember doing that? Or was it 6 instances of 1?
Oh, it's probably 6 instances of 1, right? Maybe a 2 in there if I was lucky.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, remember, I was trying not to kill things as well. So it was probably mostly me just not being able to do much damage, but then also a small amount of me not wanting to do much damage.
That's completely fair. New character, right?
Mm.
I mean, look, I got 24,
Yeah.
and I spent the whole time fighting living spirits and getting everything absolutely blocked. Phil had 26 and Mark had 33. Those are some low numbers, like
Very low.
crazy low numbers.
Yeah.
Damage taken, Phil took 7. I took 23. Gaz took 33. Mark took 43. Mark is really a Triforce in this. And healing wise, Phil healed 5. I healed 12. Gaz healed 19. You had your little repair drone in there for a bit, didn't you? That thing was keeping me up. That was
Kind of
amazing.
your repair drone, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it
yeah.
was
It was
basically just
mine.
following you around, just like
Yeah.
pew, pew.
And hitting living spirits for 1.
Not even for 1, right? Like attacking them for 1 with disadvantage.
And they have shield 3. Literally impossible.
Yep.
And Mark healing for 32. Outpost phase, there was no outpost phase this week because we were really, really tired. And we will start the next scenario with an outpost phase, which I think people were already talking at Discord about, timings of outpost phases recently and saving them for the beginning and all that. So we get to do that, which is pretty cool. Gaz, how did you enjoy your first Prism scenario? Being, the way it was and, everyone not doing what you would normally do in any given scenario. Was there... I can't even read my notes properly. I don't know what I wrote.
It was good. I got to play it twice, right? Yeah, no, it's great. I loved it. I loved it. I loved the puzzle of it. I mean, it's a new character, so I think regardless what character it was going to be enjoyable because you're kind of learning all these things. But I did enjoy the systems I was playing with and looking and working out the combos.
Yeah.
I got to do, and I'll just talk generally across both sessions, both attempts. I got to do some cool bouncy backwards and forwards.
I saw that. That was very cool.
Like, and so I'm starting to see the matrix a bit in that regards. Like, I'm like, I can't, I'm like, that was cool. That worked. Right. And it's now just trying to find more pieces to put into that are going to allow it to kind of go to the next level. I
noticed it around the pressure plates when you had 2 things next to it and you were swapping in there to then activate the pressure plates, jump off, jump back on, and all of that. It was really, really cool to see, especially when there were turns when you were moving and then someone was like, I thought you were going to do this. And you're like, hang on.
Yeah, just relax. There's so much fucking text on these cards. Yeah. So, so it was good. It was, first scenario I picked, it's like playing a new, like, TCG and going like, hey, do you want a mulligan on your first turn? You're like, I didn't know what any of these cards do. How am I supposed to decide whether I want to keep them or not? And so I was looking at all my summons going like, which one do I want to be? I don't know, because that then informs which one's also going to come out when you first transfer and blah, blah, blah. So I think I learned a bit and adapted. Like the first run, the reason I was low on cards at the end was because I kind of was like, I'm just going to keep playing summons because this is what I'm supposed to do, right? But they're all hitting things with 3 shields, so bad. The second one, I think I only really got out the repair one and maybe the damage one, and I think I just switched between them a few times. But I still managed to make the most of those. So no, I had a great time. I really enjoyed playing that, and I've been like just frothing about playing it next week, like in a couple of days.
Other than the pets that you were putting out, the summons that you were putting out, were there other lost cards you were playing? Because I think you were the one that was probably running low on cards in both sessions, or lower. And you were the one that was saying, oh, as long as I have enough turns to get to the things, then we're not in a rush.
Yeah. The first one, no. The first one, I don't think so. The only burn card I think I've got is one that summons something from memory. I'm just kind of having a quick squiz through now. So I don't
think the first run you got hit for a lot and you had the burn 2 from your lost pile. Oh, sorry, your discard pile. So that probably definitely played into that.
Yeah, so no. But I don't have, I didn't really have any burn cards other than the summons. So I think I just summoned too much in the first one. Plus, getting hit and having to lose 2 cards sucks. But in the second one, I was playing a lot more conservative. I think just want to talk about the long rest perk.
Oh, I was just about to say, can you talk about the long rest thing? Because that thing was so much fun.
Amazing. I was saying this in the Discord today. Like, so the long rest perk, I think, is it 2 or is it 1? I feel like
2 has to be 2, surely.
It is 2. It is 2. So when you long rest, you get to pick at what initiative you long rest at, but you get to wait for all the cards to come out after like all
After seeing initiatives.
Yeah, after you're like, hey, everyone, we're doing this, you're like, oh, interesting. I'm gonna use like the best initiative boots ever, right? But then that could be it. It could be it. If that just said that, 2 ticks, you get to choose one initiative when you're long rest. You'd be like, 2 ticks is a lot, but that's still really good. Right? Especially having summons, because then you could choose to go before things and have turn. But no, not only that, you get to control all your micro machines at the same time.
Yeah, that's nuts.
It's just make them do whatever you want. Well, I mean, obviously within the rules of the game, like you control their actions. But yeah, it was so cool, so cool. So it's going to be really cool factoring in a long rest to my turns, right? Because that's what I'm going to want to do. I want to play and then have my summons out for when I long rest, so that they can, like that's actually a really big turn. It's crazy because I don't know. I haven't seen any other character that goes, yes, it's my long rest turn. Now we're going to get to pump, right?
That's true. You get to also go. So if you go before things, you get to control your summons before you go, which is great because if you're controlling them, you can move them out of harm's way. So that's great. You can move them to, I don't know, go together to then concentrate, like focus fire on something. And then, of course, you get your natural rest, which everyone else is used to having it at the end of the turn, which is to heal 2 and untap all of the items that you've used, which you get to get them all back for the turn that you're currently playing. Which is, really cool, especially for defensive items and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly. I hadn't even thought about the untapping part, but yeah, you're right. Like building around having a lot of tap items is going to be really important because they're going to be able to do that, and because there's transfer icons in the AMD that you flip over. There's also some shenanigans that you could do with that even on your long rest, like you could get
because
to
of the
different
creatures.
places. Yeah, they're going to attack, and then I can switch out and do some stuff there. So again, that becomes a lot more random, a lot harder to plan around. But yeah, it was cool. It was really cool.
Someone in the amDirt Discord, our Discord, was talking about comparing it to the Geminate. What were your thoughts? Because you've played both. How do you think they compare?
So I think the people were talking about melting my brain, right? And like that the people are going to enjoy that. But I think that the question was like, how mind melty is it compared to the Geminate? So I mean, I guess that's a complexity question in a sense. I think the way I was thinking about it was that I reckon that the Geminate has a higher floor, right? It's harder to get the Geminate to do the basic stuff you want to do to have effective turns. And I don't just mean like you can move to attack to every turn because everyone can do that, but actually be able to make your cards work, but not absolutely be hyper effective. It's just have turns because the Geminate has the ability to just go, oh, you know what? I'm either too close or I'm too far, and I can't do anything about that. You know, I was in range and then I went slightly too late. They went early and nothing is where I want it to be. I guess I do nothing. Or I'm in the wrong form. I guess I'll long rest. You know, stuff like that. Like you can have these really bad turns. So I think it's harder to make that just work in general. And that's kind of what I'm talking about with the floor. But I don't think that the reward for the Geminate is as high in regards to when you jump through all those hoops. And we've talked about this. I'm not going to make it about the Geminate. So I actually think the ceiling is a little bit lower. So while it's complex to just play, but then it's not rewarding because you can't elevate that. Like you can. I'm not saying you can't play efficiently, but it doesn't get to that point where you can have these wow turns because you've really thought really far ahead. It's like you need to think far ahead so that you get a next turn, right? Compared to the Prism, and I've only got one scenario, right? Or played the same scenario twice.
And you've only seen the first 4 levels worth of cards.
Yeah, correct. And which apparently level 5 is going to it's just so I don't know what's going to happen there. But based on what I've seen, I think the floor is so much lower. Like you could just play summons and move around, and I think it works fine. Right? There's enough cards that I can see where you just like move these around or make these do, or there's ways of doing things that are probably a little bit simpler that just will allow you to have an impact. But I think that ceiling is so much higher on this. So I think that's where the complexity comes into it. It's like, do you want to just be there and do some things and just go through? Just don't let your summons die. And if they do, you've got a couple of cards that fixes that anyway. Great, cool, go. You're not gonna not be there. Right? You're not going to be like, oh, shit, I guess I passed this turn because I picked the wrong card. because you've got summons.
Yeah.
But if you actually want to be effective, and I think you want to make the most of that and not just like, oh, everything died by halfway through the scenario, I guess I'm a move to attack 2 bot. I think that's where the complexity is going to come.
Yeah.
And I put it in a similar vein to when we talked about the snowflake and the complexity on that. I think to just play the snowflake and be there and do the card says, I think is quite low. But to do what you did with the snowflake and consistently control the whole map and do lots of damage at the same time, I think is very hard. And that's the complexity. So again, that ceiling on that character is really high, but the floor is really low. So
Gotcha.
again, it's something like that. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. I don't know if
Yeah.
that matches with what other people think. And I have only seen one scenario, but that's how I would compare the two from a complexity perspective.
And it sounds like you're really pumped for more. Like you just...
Totally. I love this. This is so cool.
Do you think there's a scenario type? Because everyone has a scenario type they don't want for certain characters. You reckon there's a type that you wouldn't enjoy on the Prism? Or is it so flexible that it can be fine in any situation?
Puzzles with pressure plates. Like, nah, I think this one wasn't great for it because that and escape scenarios I think aren't going to be ideal, right? Because even though you've got the movement and you could use your summons to kind of get around the map and escape, right? Escape scenario will not be fun if the only thing you're using all of your cards to do is escape, right? And I think that putting these cards out as lost cards, it's similar to your shackles, right? You became very conscious of like, shit, this is an escape scenario. I don't want to play my big cards because they're lost. All right. So if I'm like, oh, it's escape, I'm probably not playing many summon cards because if I have a bad turn and I have 3 out and they all get booked, I'm like, oh, that's like a third of my hand, right? Like gone because I played poorly. Now I'm basically going to have to just move to attack 2 and long rest. So
how do you think it'll go with
those.
What about bosses like DPS races and all of that? Would you feel quite comfortable with that?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I mean, based on the bosses we've done so far, DPS races, I think I'd be fine. Like, it would be challenging because I'd have to keep them alive, but I think that they would swarm.
Yeah.
Like, there's a couple that I think you could get out that would swarm, and once they're swarmed, it'd be like, my turn goes, and they all go, yum, 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 and then I'd be like, jump in, and do all my shit. So, I think...
The boss now has retaliate.
Oh, then I'm not going to rock up. Like... like what guys, I'm sorry, I'm skipping Frosthaven this week. You have to do it without me. Yeah, I think that's not a scenario type, right? But any monsters with retaliate, I'm just gonna be like, ugh.
Yeah, okay.
Gross.
At least you'll be swapping a little bit more because you take that damage when they get low, right? I look forward to seeing that actually. I want to see
it's a good point.
You know, I want to see a room full of flaming blade spinners, like the Beyblade 2.0. I want to see how you kind of maneuver through that puzzle, Gaz.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah. So, no, you're right. I think stuff like that probably... I'm sure there are going to be scenarios and monster types I'm going to see, which I'm going to say, this is gross and I hate it. I don't know what those are at the moment. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much for that. We're going to have a little chat about summoning because you are a pet-based class. The original pet class that I can think of off the top of my head right now is the Mind Thief. Was there another one? Or my Gloomhaven memory is a little bit...
I think there's one called the Summoner.
No. I'm talking about starters. Like your very first... You're setting up Gloomhaven for the very first time.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I don't think the Cragheart did obstacles. The Brute did brute things.
Did do brute things, yeah.
The
Spellweaver, did they have a pet?
I don't think so. Maybe one. I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Tinkerer?
The Tinkerer might have put things down. Yeah, might have... Maybe had a pet or two, but
yeah, okay.
But did the Mind Thief have many? Didn't it only have like one, like a rat or something?
I think, I don't know. I think I had a rat. I remember having it. And my point is, summons have come a long way, right? They've been in the game for a very long time. A lot of people are funny with it in that they don't, it's a burn card that you lose when you get them out. That was my whole problem with the Mind Thief when I first played it. I was like, this pet, you put it out, it's going to do fuck all damage. And then it's going to die and go in my lost pile. That's a card down. And it took a while for the mind to change from other characters to sit there and go, well, by playing a lost card, you're mitigating damage potentially, right? Because you take a lot of damage, you burn a card, you don't take that damage anymore. The pet's already doing that, but the pet also can do attack and do its own abilities. And we've seen the evolution of some of the pets. I keep calling them pets, but summons. The evolution of summons over the whole Haven series. Do you like where summons are in the game at the moment? There hasn't been a great deal of change from Gloomhaven into Frosthaven, apart from, I believe, if there are no targets or focuses on the map, you can now bring them towards you. I don't think there's many other changes other than summon-based classes like the Bone Shaper not having them tied to lost cards, or most of them anyway. What are your thoughts around summons?
As somebody who hasn't really played around with summons, despite
Yeah.
playing Banner Spear, which everyone keeps telling me does have lots of summons, but they don't play like summons. They play like inanimate objects, right? Yes, I think it's fine, and I think it's a bit feel baddy because you want to do more with them. So it's this weird thing of like you would have to rebalance the whole system if you were to go. You can control all their actions all the time, right? Because then they just become like amazing. But then also, someone actually pointed this out in a thread I was reading. It also would mean that your turn would take so much longer. Because if you had 3 summons out and you get to pick them all, then suddenly now you're analyzing the entire map and going like, well, where do I want them and what do I want them to do? Rather than just like, this is where they go. Like,
It sounds like you want a long rest on the Prism.
yeah, basically, right? Like every single turn. And so it would absolutely slow the game down if you did that, so there's that side of things. Because I didn't really play any summon classes in Gloomhaven, and now I'm just jumping into this. I'm kind of learning some of these things, like what does the health icon mean? So like it's interesting, but I think it's fine. And I think the way that they fixed, I'll say fixed, as in the way they made it better from Gloomhaven was definitely the right direction to take it in making each of the summons do work differently. So, for example, your Bone Shaper, most of them aren't lost cards, while the skeletons aren't. The ability to get them back from your lost pile or things like that, start with them on the map, stuff like that, because they're all addressing the problems that the main summons character in Gloomhaven, the summoner, had, was that you could get them all out, and then you had one card to return all your summons from your discard, your lost pile, I think, back to your hand, so you could do them all again. But there really wasn't much else other than moving around. So it was still this all in. But you talk about the Mind Thief, right, where you summon your rat. It's like, well, so it's got to pump out a lot of damage in order to be worth like taking in general, or actually doing. And you found that with like your Fox, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm talking about, the evolution, in that they're no longer like number cardboard standees now. They're thematically tied into the person who's using them. For the Snowflake, for example, with the actual Fox itself, I don't understand how thematically it doesn't become the focus. It's like at the end, right? That was its thing. Is that I think it attacks for 3, move 2, or move 2, attack 3. It's elusive, I guess, and there's also another pet later on. I mean, obviously you got the 2 owls. The special thing with that is you get to summon 2 with 1 card, which is really cool, and they fly. And then you've got the other one later on, which is I think it's a wound, pierce, saber-tooth tiger looking thing, which is pretty cool, which I didn't pick. Yeah. Okay, Snowflake's got another one. Yeah. So Snowflake's a summon class. You can actually have like a whole field of animals.
I mean, squishy support with a pet. That was what we called for. So.
That is true. And then it evolves even further because the Shackles has got 2 pets to choose from, 2 summons to choose from. One of them is the egg that explodes that hit everything, which I've only done twice. And then the other one where you can literally build your whole thing around is the buff naked dude that whenever it takes damage, you can choose to take it instead. And with the crazy self-healing of the Shackles, it's a frontliner that just doesn't die, which is, really, really cool. So, I like the fact that they've done a lot more interesting things with them. They've introduced them to more characters, so you don't have to be a traditional necromancer or a summoning kind of class to have a pet. The Banner Spear with the banners and having abilities tied to those, and also your shitty little squire that does absolutely nothing. I think that it's a really, really cool thing that they've managed to evolve and continue to do, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. One of the things that people talk about a little bit is that they don't scale into late game. Now, as someone, you don't have a summon class until now, so you haven't really played around with them. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. I don't really know what the answer is to that, other than like you level 1. I suppose you get buffs, right? Because I also didn't play the Bone Shaper, so I didn't quite. I know that Mark increased their health by like 1 and gave them Pierce, but yeah, I haven't really seen a lot of things that help to scale them into late game. I've seen a couple of yours that actually have little enhanced icons, which you can increase their health or something
Yeah.
like that. But yeah, no,
Yeah,
scaling is
the
considered to be one of
scaling
the
thing
problems.
is yeah, the scaling thing is an interesting question because I don't know how much that is that they don't scale to the late game and more they don't scale with difficulty. Because
Hmm.
that's part of the problem, right? Is that they their damage and their health don't go up when you increase the difficulty. Now I know
No.
the players don't either, but you play around it because that's you. Whereas the
Mm,
summons are like again less controlled by you.
mm.
So yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see because I think the Bone Shaper has a couple of tools. I think the Bone Shaper is the perfect template of what a summoning character should be if that's your thing, right? If your thing is summon things and then they're gonna go do things for you and that's your game, I think they absolutely nailed that, right? Because being able to keep like not be lost cards for the most part, buffing them, giving them immunity to retaliate, stuff like that, exactly what that needed. Something like the Prism, I think, is different because, I mean, there's lots of different ways of playing it. Even people have been talking about. I feel like that's less of a summon class and more of a class that uses summons. If that sounds like it
No,
makes
no, that makes sense. Yeah, I get that.
because I mean, the way I'm going to play it is I'm going to utilize the transferring and the melee a lot, right? Like I'm going to use them for position, and they're almost like a damage ad that I need to keep alive because I need the transfer and
Yeah.
bounce around stuff. There are ranged builds with it that you can do, which you use the summons to buff your attacks and do a bunch of range stuff. But so again, it depends on how you're playing it. But
It's
yeah,
interesting that you chose to play it like a frontliner in our frontline heavy lineup.
yeah, because I'm sick of playing supporty like backline stuff, and I'm
You could
like,
be. You just said you can be a ranged. I mean, it's literally got a card called long range missile.
mm.
That is not support. Wait, is it a support card?
Well,
Is it
I
a
mean,
healing
like
missile?
it's support. Yeah, it's a healing missile from long range. So
Oh.
no, I just want to play him. I just like, nah, I'm going balls to the wall. I'm just going in. Like you can deal with it. So I mean, it is a very interesting party, which we can talk about another time if you want, in regards to everyone being melee and a whole bunch of pets.
Yeah, and
But
everyone eating all the elements and all the other
I
problems that we're
don't
having.
know what an element is. What's an element?
No, okay.
Yeah. So, but yes, going back to the summons, yeah, I think they've innovated in the right direction, and I think they've missed in a couple of instances because it's still lost cards, which means there's still this like there's still a risk, right? You put your fox down, and you go, even though it's got this thing, there's still a good chance that a bad draw, right, or a misplay means it just dies,
Yeah,
and you go, now that card's gone for the whole thing, and so you have to be sure. Like, when do you bring it out? You bring it out early. There's a chance it dies early. You don't have it. You bring it out late. Doesn't do anything.
mm.
Whereas at a lost card, if the lost card says attack 3 targets for 5 damage each and give more wound, you know when that goes off, you get to choose.
Yeah,
So
okay.
it's really impactful when you want it to be impactful, or you just don't play it. I think the problem with some of the pets is that the summons is that you have to play them in advance for them to be good. But then every round there's this risk that it just gets booked, and you go, well, I guess that lost card's wasted.
Yeah,
So it kind of they almost need to be better for that reason, but they can't be because if you don't get them booked, then they're going to dominate everything, right?
yes.
Like you can't give that fox 10 health and attack 5 because then you're like, oh, I'm just going to summon at the start and like, hey guys, let's just follow the fox. He's just going to kill everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, so like, yeah, it's a tricky thing with the rules how they've got them.
yeah, okay. Yeah, the other thing I was going to ask you was like, have you looked into any of the items? Because that's one of the things that I think Frosthaven has evolved further. Is there are a lot of items now tied to pets and tied to summons. Is that something you've had a look at? And I don't expect you to remember them, etc. But it's very cool that they've considered that for ways of keeping them alive and ways of helping them move and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I have, and I think because I didn't get to really do an outpost phase when I created a character and get shit, I will be hopefully doing that this time. Just basic stuff that you start with, like the Horn of Command.
Oh
There's a bunch of tools that
yes,
give, exactly. I love that they have again supported summons working differently through extra things in the game rather than going like, we need to overhaul the rules, right? And doing something weird like that. They've kept it pretty much the same.
Yeah.
But then gone like, you have more tools that allow you to make them do the things that you want them to do.
Yeah.
I think it's exactly what you want to do.
No, perfect. So I guess that will end today's episode. Oh, this week's episode of amDirt. Gaz is going to be, he's level 4 at the moment. He will be level 5 in, I don't know, a week or two, depending on how many scenarios we get.
2 XP off in 2 weeks, I reckon.
Yeah, okay, 2 XP off in 2 weeks. So that'll be exciting. The reason I'm saying all this is, A, you get apparently a super amazing, cool thing that's going to change your life.
Apparently, yeah.
And the second thing is it opens up your solo scenario, and I can't wait to look at that.
Oh god, it's gonna be
I think we're gonna have to record that one. Because
I think so.
it'll be amazingly mind melty. Hopefully, the solo scenarios are so fun because of the way they try and really get you to do your whole shtick in this solo environment. I can't wait to see what this is gonna be like. It's gonna be.
I'm just gonna wait till I'm level 9 and then just solo it's super easy. So yeah, no, it's a good point actually. I hadn't even thought about the solo scenario.
Yeah, we haven't even looked at the item either. We should probably have a look at that. Oh, could it be a free transfer or something, right?
That sounds like what it would be, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, join us next week when we will cover, I'm almost certain, scenario 27, which is the one we just unlocked, as we further dive down this, I guess, puzzle book line or something like that. Well, I don't know what to call it yet. It's just still early days. I have been Deddy. I have been joined again by Gaz.
And remember, when it comes to rolling terribly, it's all in the wrist.